What are you doing? At my stepmother's request, I went to a party with her, who has walking difficulties. A stranger poured champagne over her while I stood aside. I don't care if you're sitting around at my standing party in luxury, just because you said you've had poor legs. He was apparently the CEO of the business that was throwing the party. He was Mr. Kennedy, if I remember well. I believe that the CEO of a corporation should never operate in such a manner. How cocky. Consider yourself fortunate to be wearing pricey champagne on your head, as ordinary people like you most likely cannot afford it. I gazed at him while he was laughing uncontrollably, and he returned the glare. Why is that face there? You are merely a subcontractor's son. Subcontractors don't exist. Get lost. He even gestured dismissively at me with his shoes. That's when I lost it. I made the decision that I would never be able to forgive Mr. Kennedy for uttering such things and splashing champagne on my mother. I'll see to it that you're fired first. His journey into hell began with what transpired next. David is my name. I am a 35-year-old single man. Despite my daily work commitments, I always reserve Friday nights for myself. My mother and I eat dinner together at that time. Did I keep you waiting long? I apologize for that. No, David. She looked up at me with a smile and said, I just got here myself. This year, my mother, Catherine, celebrated her 55th birthday in front of the restaurant. She still held her cane in her right hand, and although her face was more wrinkled today, her gentle eyes remained the same. Her cane is an integral part of her everyday existence because she was born with a handicap in her legs. She is not, however, my biological mother. I'll begin at the beginning. I was living alone with my father when I was old enough to recall. Mothers picked up the other children at the daycare where I attended most of the time. For me, though, it was always my dad showing up in his suit late from work. Naturally, my friends talked about their mothers, but I had no idea what it was like to be a mother. Why don't I have a mother, Dad? He looked hurt and murmured, I'm sorry, David, when I asked him that. I'm so sorry. I could tell by his expression that something wasn't right, but I was too embarrassed to inquire further. My grandma told me when I was around 5 years old that my biological mother had left my father and me shortly after I was born. She had fled with a different man. Knowing that my own mother had abandoned me placed a scar on my heart, even if I had suspected as much. When I had been in elementary school for a little while, my father approached me nervously. David, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Someone you want me to meet. That's when he introduced me to a woman named Catherine. At the time, my father was about 35 years old, the same age I am now. Catherine was 27. David, I'm thinking of marrying Catherine here. She'll be your mother. Is that okay? Okay with you? I was taken aback. It wasn't surprising, considering I had never had a mother in my life, and suddenly, I was being told I'd have one. There was also something I was curious about. Why do you use a cane, miss? Looking back, it was rude to ask that question right off the bat, but back then, I was just a little kid. Nice to meet you, David. I was born with a disability in my legs. I can walk with a cane, though. Would you mind having a mother like me? Catherine spoke with a hint of uncertainty, but I shook my head. No, I'm happy to have a mom. Great. If David is okay with it, let's shake hands to say, looking forward to living together from now on. We shook hands. I remember how soft and warm her hand felt. After that, my father brought me to meet Catherine a few more times. Each time, she made me homemade snacks or helped me with my studies. I grew fond of her and gradually found myself talking to her more easily. 6 months after we met, my father and Catherine got married. It was my father's second marriage, but Catherine's first. They worked at the same company, which is how they met. Catherine didn't want a lavish wedding, so they simply took a commemorative photo instead. Even as a child, I was struck by how beautiful Catherine looked in her wedding dress. That photo of the three of us as a family is still displayed on my desk today. My father smiling warmly, Catherine with a shy expression, and me in my school uniform looking a little nervous. It's a happy family photo. The three of us started living together for a while. I called Catherine Miss instead of Mom. It felt a bit awkward and embarrassing to call her Mom at first. Neither she nor my father pressured me about it. Catherine continued working while also taking care of the household. She was especially skilled at cooking, and for me, who had been eating my dad's limited menu, her meals were like a dream come true. Miss, can I have seconds on the hamburger steak? Of course. I'm so happy you like it. She always smiled kindly, and I gradually opened up to her. I even started talking to her about what was happening at school. A little over a year after Catherine came into our lives, Mother's Day came around at school. We had a class project to draw a picture for our mothers and give it to them as a gift. I worked hard to draw Catherine's smile. I also wrote, "Thank you, Mom," but I felt a bit nervous about giving it to her. Would she be happy with it? I put the drawing in my backpack and went home. While I hesitated, Catherine noticed something was up. "David, what's wrong? Do you have something you want to tell me?" Here, Mom. Thank you for everything." When I handed Catherine the drawing, her eyes widened. Then tears began to stream down her face in large drops. "You're calling me Mom. I'm so happy. Thank you." Overwhelmed with emotion, she pulled me into a hug. "Can I call you Mom from now on?" "Of course." My dad watched us with a joyful smile. My dad was there, and my mom was there. I was happy with that life. Dad continued to shower me with affection, and Catherine, no, Mom, supported me with care and discipline when I needed it. I cherished this ordinary family life more than anything. However, that simple happiness didn't last long. One day, my father suddenly collapsed at work. Mom, who worked at the same company, rode with him in the ambulance to the hospital. But he had suffered a heart attack, and by the time they arrived at the hospital, it was too late. When I was brought to the hospital, I saw my father lying there with a white cloth covering his face. His hands were cold, and no matter how much I talked to him, he wouldn't wake up. Behind me, Mom was crying uncontrollably. Thus, my father suddenly became someone who would never return. From the time I was born, he protected me and even raised me alone for several years. Losing him left me in a daze. Even during his funeral, everything felt unreal. The only thing I clearly remember is Mom holding my hand tightly the entire time. After the funeral, it was just me, my grandmother on my father's side, and Mom. Grandma liked Mom. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but they seemed to get along well. That boy left far too soon, but I'm sure he was happy in those last few years with you, Catherine. Hearing this, Mom began to cry again. As for what comes next, I think I'll take. David, Catherine, you're not his biological mother, and you're still young. You can find your own happiness without burdening yourself. You don't have to push yourself. I looked down. It was true that Mom wasn't my real mother, but if I started living with Grandma, I'd have to change schools. And more than that, I'd be separated from Mom. We'd be strangers again. The thought made my heart ache. Sensing my distress, Mom gently squeezed my hand. "No, Mother. I'll raise David." Both Grandma and I looked at her in surprise. "But Catherine, your legs aren't strong, and you might struggle financially. There may be times when you feel like David is a burden. Are you really sure about this?" "Yes, I decided on the day David called me Mom for the first time. I decided that I would always protect him and be his mother for life. It's true that it might be hard at times, but it's for my precious son. For his sake, I'll give him all the love he deserves, even the love of his father, and raise him to be a fine young man. So, could you please trust me with David?" Her words carried an unshakable resolve, tears streaming down her face. Grandma asked, "Catherine, Are you truly okay with this? Will you think of David as your real son? Of course. He is my one and only son. I looked up at Mom's face. She turned to me and asked, David, is that okay? Will you keep living with me? Tears rolled down my cheeks as I nodded. The warmth of her words calling me her son melted the ice that had formed in my heart after losing Dad. Yeah, I want to stay with you, Mom. I'll help out a lot and be a good boy, so please let me stay with you. David, as we cried together, Grandma looked at Mom and said, when you need anything, don't hesitate to tell me. I'll help however I can. Catherine, please take good care of David. And just like that, I continued living with my mother after my father's death. Mom must have been devastated by the loss of my father. She must have felt lonely and unsure of herself, but she never showed those tears in front of me. Instead, she tried to maintain the same warm and enveloping smile as always. Mom decided to keep her job in accounting while raising me on her own. Every morning, she would wake up early to prepare breakfast for me before heading to work. Since I got home earlier than she did, I tried my best to help with the housework to lighten her load. Whenever I helped out, Mom would smile warmly and say, "Oh, David, you did the laundry. That makes me so happy. Thank you." I wanted to see that smile, so I worked hard to help her. I grew older and eventually became a middle school student. Some kids rebel during adolescence, but I never had such a phase. I never forgot my gratitude toward Mom, and that kept me from ever wanting to rebel. Mom earned a steady salary as a full-time employee, but life was never easy for the two of us. We often went grocery shopping together or grew vegetables and planters to make ends meet. Mom, thanks for another amazing meal. This beef stew is the best. Thank you, David. Hearing you say that always keeps me motivated. When exam season came, I earned a scholarship to the best high school in the region. Mom was overjoyed and proudly said, "You're my wonderful son." After starting high school, I got permission to work a part-time job. I wanted to make life a little easier for Mom. "David, I'm grateful you're working part-time, but remember your main responsibility is to study. I'd rather you focus on your education and not worry about me." Hearing her concerns, I made sure my grades didn't slip. I managed to maintain the top rank in my grade for 3 years straight. It wasn't easy, of course, but when I thought about the sacrifices Mom had made, it felt manageable. Finally, my senior year arrived. "David, you haven't told me much about your plans after high school. What are you planning to do?" One day, Mom asked me this question, and I answered, "Well, I'm thinking of becoming a civil servant after graduation. I'll probably pass the exam, so don't worry." "Wait, David, you've never mentioned wanting to be a civil servant before. Is that what you really want?" "Not exactly. I just want to become independent as soon as possible. Being a civil servant means stable income, and I could help you out more." Mom's eyes widened, and then her voice turned sharp. "David, sit down right now." "Huh. Oh. Okay." It was rare for Mom to show anger, but at that moment, she clearly was. I nervously sat and looked up at her. "David, children should never hold back for the sake of their parents. Your teacher told me you're an outstanding student who can get into any college. Don't you really want to go to college?" I hesitated. The truth was, I did want to go to college and study something I was passionate about. But that would mean living on my own and paying for tuition, which I knew would be a huge financial burden. But college costs too much, and I don't want to. "I know you're thinking about me, and I appreciate that. But don't forget that I think about you just as much as your mother." Mom left the room and came back with a bank book, placing it in front of me. "This is your father's inheritance," she said. "I've kept it under untouched all these years." Inside the bank book was a savings balance of several tens of thousands of dollars. "David, I've been saving money for your college education as well. With this inheritance and my savings, you'll be able to go to college. So please go when you want to attend. That's the wish of both your mom and your dad in heaven. Mom spoke with tears in her eyes. Mom, are you really sure about this? Of course I'm sure, David. Make your mom proud. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. I'll never forget this kindness. Mom smiled warmly and said, Kindness? That's such an exaggeration. From that point on, I threw myself into my studies and was accepted into one of the top colleges in the country. When I started college, I left home to live on my own. On the day I moved out, Mom looked at me with deep emotion and said, David, you've grown so much. When we first met 11 years ago, you were so small. And now you've grown into such an impressive young man. Leaving the house makes me a little sad, but there's nothing that makes me prouder. Do your best at college and stay true to yourself. My chest swelled with emotion as I said, Mom, I'll come back often. When I do, let me have some of your cooking. Okay, of course, I'll make your favorite hamburger steak anytime. With that, I began living apart from Mom and worked hard at my studies. During my time at college, I found myself torn about a new challenge. While it would have been safer to aim for a job at a major company or a stable career in public service, I had developed a dream I wanted to pursue. When I brought this up during one of my visits home, Mom told me, Of course you should go for it, David. You only live once. You have the strength and talent to make your dreams come true. Take the chance. I'll always be your biggest supporter. Her words gave me the courage to commit to my dream. Looking back, Mom had always been my greatest ally, always believing in me. The fact that she chose to take me in after my father passed away and dedicated the rest of her life entirely to me. I could never thank her enough. Because of her, I had been able to keep moving forward with all my strength. Time passed, and I became a working adult. Although Mom and I lived separately, we stayed within visiting distance. We made it a habit to have dinner together every Friday. This is the story of the path Mom and I have walked together. It's been 28 years since we first met. Even now, Mom and I share a close bond over dinner. One Friday, Mom said, David, there's going to be a work-related party soon. Really? That's rare for you. Mom currently works as the head of accounting at a small company. It's the same company she worked at when she met Dad. Her long years of dedication had been recognized, leading to her promotion. All department heads and above are invited. It's hosted by the company we contract with, and they said we can bring family if we're attending alone. David, would you come with me? Are you sure it's okay for me to go? I want to secretly show you off to my colleagues. I want them to see how amazing my son has become, Mom said with a playful wink. If you put it that way, I'll gladly join you. When's the party? Next Sunday. Thanks for agreeing. And so, we made plans to attend the party, and I returned to my place. On the day of the party, I arrived at the venue. In front of the entrance, Mom stood in an elegant party dress alongside a man in a suit. Sean, it's been a while, David. You've grown into such an admirable man. Sean was Mom's supervisor, the managing director of her company. I'd heard he had been one of Dad's junior colleagues. After Dad passed away, Sean had been a significant source of support for Mom as she chose to continue working at the company. I trusted Sean. Thank you for always looking after my mother. Well, I just worry about her with her leg condition, Sean said. Mom potted playfully and said, I told you, I'm fine, but you're such a worrywart. Ah, sorry about that, but now that David's here, I don't have to worry anymore. Sean and Mom seemed close. I had long suspected that Sean, a bachelor, had feelings for my mother. Mom also seemed happy whenever she talked about him, and I wondered if they had mutual feelings for each other. However, I believe their lack of progress might have been because they were being considerate of me. Out of respect for Mom's decisions, I had never interfered in their relationship. but deep down, I'd hoped things would work out between them. As we entered the party venue, the lively standing buffet was just getting started. Sean guided Mom to a seat in a quiet corner of the room where she sat down. "I'll grab us some drinks," I said, and went to the drink section to grab 3 glasses of white wine. While there, I also picked up some light snacks like cheese and olives. As I returned to where Mom and Sean were seated, I noticed from a distance that someone was standing in front of them. It was a middle-aged man, large in stature, dressed in an expensive-looking suit. To my shock, he dumped the contents of his champagne glass over Mom's head. "What are you doing?" I pushed my way through the crowd to reach them. Mom's hair was dripping wet, her bangs clinging to her face as water dripped down. Sean, who had been away for a moment, returned, his eyes wide in disbelief. "And who might you be?" "I'm her son." "Why on earth would you do something like this?" "Ha!" the man sneered. "Sitting comfortably at my standing party, acting like you own the place. I don't care if she claims her legs are bad, that's no excuse." Apparently, this man was the CEO of the company hosting the party. His name was Mr. Kennedy. I was about to get up, but he poured the champagne before I could. "My mother looks like she's about to cry as a company CEO. Don't you think this behavior is utterly inappropriate? What a cheeky little brat. Counters like you probably can't afford this expensive champagne, so consider this an honor." As I glared at Mr. Kennedy, who was laughing loudly, he glared back at me. "What's with that face? You're just the son of a subcontractor. Subcontractors are nothing but dust. Blow them away and they're gone. Now get out of here." He even made dismissive shooing gestures. At that moment, I completely lost my temper. I made up my mind not to let Mr. Kennedy get away with pouring champagne on my mother and saying such cruel things. "Let's start with getting you fired." Mr. Kennedy exchanged glances with his entourage before bursting into laughter. "You think you can get me fired? Go ahead. Try, if you can, you little punk." His expression was full of arrogance and confidence. Without a word, I calmly took out my phone and dialed a number. "Hello, Mr. Kingston, it's me. Sorry to call you out of the blue, but I'm afraid we'll have to cancel this deal." "Yes, it's because of your CEO, Mr. Kennedy. He poured champagne over my mother and told her to get lost." After finishing the call, I hung up. Mr. Kennedy stood there, his mouth agape, staring at me. "Kingston, that's the name of our group's chairman." Almost immediately his phone, tucked into his chest pocket, began ringing. "No, Mr. Kingston, that can't be." Mr. Kennedy fumbled and dropped his phone, his entire body trembling as he looked at me with fear in his eyes. "Oh, what's your name?" "My name is David. I'm the CEO of a company called DC Corporation." When I said that, Mr. Kennedy's face turned pale. He opened his mouth. "DC Corporation? You mean the giant 8 company that just decided to partner with us? That D Corporation?" "Yes, that's correct." As I replied, the room erupted in murmurs. "Yes, I am currently the CEO of 20 multinational global companies. DC Corporation grew tremendously in the 8th sector and recently began selling smartphones and tablets worldwide. The manufacturing for those devices had been entrusted to the company led by Mr. Kennedy, which happened to be the primary contractor for my mother's company. Incidentally, this party was to celebrate the contract between DC Corporation and Mr. Kennedy's company. I actually started my business during my college days. My mother gave me a push and supported me. Turning her support into motivation, I kept working hard and gradually grew Company D, which started as a small business, into something much bigger. And now, Company D has become a global corporation. As a company CEO, shouldn't you at least recognize the face of the CEO of a major client? I bent down to help wipe my mother's wet clothes as I said this to Mr. Kennedy. Why would someone like the CEO of D Corporation be here? I sighed deeply. I'm only here today to accompany my mother, who works for one of your subcontractors. Incidentally, I approved the deal with your company to ensure the profitability of my mother's company. Her company deals in essential components for smartphones and tablets. That said, this contract now seems to be in jeopardy. As I spoke calmly, Mr. Kennedy visibly trembled. I didn't know. I deeply apologize for the grave disrespect I showed to your mother. Please forgive me. But I stared coldly at Mr. Kennedy. As you can see, my mother has trouble walking without her cane. She cannot even stand. That's why she found a seat in the corner of the venue, as any reasonable person would. And yet, you noticed her and told her she was in the way, didn't you? My mother spoke up then. I have a disability, I explained. But he said, what kind of company hires someone like you? A company that employs a person like this must be terrible. Hearing this made my blood boil. Mr. Kennedy, you have no problem saying such things to someone with a disability. As a corporate CEO, or rather, as a human being, your words are despicable. I now realize my decision was not a mistake. Mr. Kennedy stammered, I, but was unable to form a coherent response. That's when Shan, an employee at the subcontractor, spoke up. Our company may be small, but we actively hire and support individuals with disabilities. In fact, Catherine does an excellent job here. Regardless of your position as the primary contractor, as a leader, it's unacceptable for you to speak to an employee that way. It must have taken great courage for Shan to stand up to the primary contractor. His words reassured me. I'm truly sorry. I deeply regret my actions, Mr. Kennedy said, bowing his head. But I spoke with anger etched on my face. Listen carefully. The person you mocked and poured champagne on is my one and only family. After my father passed away, she took me in as her own, even though I wasn't her biological son. She raised me with all her love and support. She's the one who has always been there for me. My mother, her eyes brimming with tears, whispered, David. I put an arm around her shoulder and glared at Mr. Kennedy. And yet, you insulted her. I can never forgive you for that. You will take full responsibility. This deal is canceled. This party was meaningless. The room was silent, and all eyes were on us. Mr. Kennedy's employees and affiliated company CEOs looked pale as they watched. Please don't say that. Please forgive me. If this contract falls through, it'll be a devastating blow to our company, he begged, tears streaming down his face. He dropped to his knees and then bowed down to me in apology before apologizing to me. You should apologize to my mother, I said coldly. Mr. Kennedy turned to my mother and prostrated himself. I sincerely apologize for my disrespect, ma'am. Please, I beg you to convince your son not to terminate the contract. My mother responded firmly to Mr. Kennedy. I, too, am deeply offended by your actions. I have no intention of interfering with my son's decision. That can't be. I once again opened my mouth to speak. Since my mother says the same thing, I have no intention of changing my decision. At that moment, Mr. Kennedy clung to my legs. Please, anything but that. Feeling annoyed, I was about to shake him off when a commanding voice echoed from the entrance of the venue. That's enough, Kennedy. A chill ran through the room. Ah, Mr. Kingston. It was Mr. Kingston, the head of Mr. Kennedy's corporate group, whom I had spoken with on the phone earlier. Mr. Kingston approached us and bowed deeply. I sincerely apologize for the tremendous disrespect that our group's Mr. Kennedy has shown your mother. Mr. Kingston, nearing 80 years old, carried the authority befitting a leader of a major corporate group. There is no need for you, Mr. Kingston, to apologize on his behalf, I replied. Mr. Kingston shot a sharp glare at Mr. Kennedy. After discussions with the board, we've decided to dismiss Mr. Kennedy from his position as CEO. Ignoring Mr. Kennedy's shocked outburst, Mr. Kingston continued, This man has done nothing but flaunt his authority since becoming CEO, and he's been disliked by many. His dismissal is well deserved. We cannot ask you to continue the partnership, but I hope you'll accept my sincerest apology." Mr. Kingston bowed his head sincerely as he spoke. I looked at Mr. Kennedy and asked, "Are you certain about dismissing him?" "Yes, I promise," Mr. Kingston replied. Mr. Kennedy shouted in desperation, "Mr. Kingston, I don't want to be fired. I've worked so hard to reach this position." Silence. "It was my mistake to entrust someone like you with such responsibility. Leave this company immediately." The very words "leave" that Mr. Kennedy had spat at us earlier were now being hurled at him by Mr. Kingston. Defeated, Mr. Kennedy slumped to the floor in despair. "Mr. Kingston, if you can dismiss Mr. Kennedy, we will continue our business relationship. I sincerely look forward to working with you in the future. Your kindness knows no bounds. I cannot thank you enough." Mr. Kingston replied, grasping my hand and bowing repeatedly. Then, turning to Mr. Kennedy, he barked, "Now remove this man immediately." At his command, Mr. Kingston's aides dragged a protesting Mr. Kennedy out of the venue. My mother and I merely watched the scene unfold. Afterward, Mr. Kingston reorganized the event, and the party resumed. However, since my mother's clothes were drenched, I decided to take her home. As we exited the venue, every attendee bowed to us in respect. I gave Mr. Kingston a nod and left the venue with my mother and Scene. "Mom, that was a rough ordeal. Are you okay? You're not feeling cold, are you?" When I asked in the car, my mother smiled. "I'm fine, David. More than that, thank you for standing up for me. It really warmed my heart." Relieved by her words, I noticed Scene bowing his head toward me. "David, I'm sorry. If I hadn't taken my eyes off her, I could have protected your mother better. Don't worry, Scene. You stood up for her even though Mr. Kennedy was your superior. That took real courage." My mother also thanked Scene, but he seemed a little embarrassed, so I decided to tease him a bit. "By the way, Scene, what do you think of my mother?" "What? That's..." Though nearly 60, Scene's face turned bright red. "David, don't say such things." My mother's face also seemed slightly flushed. "Well, I'm a busy man, so I've been hoping someone could stay close and take care of her," I said. "Scene, let me ask you again. What do you think of my mother?" Then Scene spoke clearly. "The truth is, I thought of Catherine as someone very special for a long time. But I've seen how hard Catherine worked after losing David's father, raising him with everything she had. I thought if I shared my feelings, it might shock or confuse her." I nodded at his words and turned to my mother. "There you have it, Mom. What's your answer to Scene?" My mother looked confused as she glanced back and forth between Scene and me. She seemed unsure of what to say. Sensing her hesitation, I spoke gently. "Mom, it's okay for you to be happy. You've done so much for me, always putting me first, always trying to be the best mother you could. But I'm okay now. It's your turn to find happiness. If you care about Scene, I want you to take his hand and be with someone who values you." My mother's eyes glistened with tears as she replied in a trembling voice. "I also think of Scene as someone very dear to me. Scene, may I take your hand?" Sheen's face lit up with joy as he exclaimed, "Of course." I smiled as I watched the two of them clasp hands. This is what happened afterward. Mr. Kingston kept his promise and officially dismissed Mr. Kennedy from his position. Having been removed from the company, Mr. Kennedy became a shadow of his former self. It's said that he squandered his wealth during his tenure, leaving him with little savings. His wife divorced him, his children abandoned him, and now he lives alone, shut away in his home. It seems he'll spend the rest of his life in isolation, unable to find another job. Yet, I feel no sympathy for him. As for me, the smartphones and tablets our corporation launched were a huge success, and the company continued to grow rapidly. I now travel the world as a busy CEO, overseeing our global operations. Despite my hectic schedule, I don't worry much about my mother. That's because Scene is by her side. The two of them got married, and my mother moved into Scene's apartment, where they now live together. Scene is completely devoted to her, which gives me great peace of mind. One day, while I was at work, my phone rang. "David, how are you doing?" "I'm doing fine, Mom." "Well, Scene and I are thinking of going to the US for our honeymoon. I'd love to see one of your company's offices while we're there. Of course, I'll take you to some of my favorite spots while you're here." Hearing that, my mother laughed happily. I'll always remember to be grateful to my mother and continue to live my life to the fullest.
I want you to boost my pay for the upcoming project if you truly appreciate it. Go tell your company's CEO what I want, old man. Listen to that much if you wish to use our firm to get renowned. We will no longer accept employment from your company if you decline. Unconsciously, I found myself glaring at David. I answered him while suppressing my rage. Then all of a sudden, David's cheeks flushed. Raising himself, he picked up a glass of ice water he had set out nearby and poured it over my head, and the papers I had packed were splattered, soaking through. David, still unsatisfied, screamed at me. "How dare you respond to me in that manner? I may terminate the contract immediately if you would like. Losing you wouldn't harm our business in the slightest because we are overloaded with work from all directions. You ought to be aware of that without even considering it. Take a break and return when you're able." I eventually lost patience with him as he continued to spout insults one after another. "You just lost $90 million. I'm a 53-year-old man named George Irving. I currently manage Irving Real Estate, a small to mid-sized real estate company that is part of my family's business. People of all ages in our neighborhood adore Irving Real Estate, which my father oversaw for many years. Since I was a young child, I have enjoyed my father's companionship. I wanted to own my own real estate business someday because I saw my father working in the industry. I started diligently studying the field in middle school. I asked my father if I might work at Irving Real Estate after high school, instead of attending college. He was initially against me, but after I convinced him of my excitement, he allowed me to join the company. Naturally, I earned my spot by passing the appropriate tests and interviews. I obtained multiple qualifications, including that of a real estate appraiser, and earned experience in a variety of areas while studying the work on a regular basis. My efforts were recognized, and with my father's endorsement, I steadily climbed the ranks. I was appointed vice president a few years ago. Recently, with my father retiring due to age, I was named the second-generation president. I never thought I would take over the company I loved since childhood, and on the day I was offered the role, I felt the greatest joy of my life. When I shared the news with my wife and children, who I met at the same workplace, they rejoiced as if it were their own achievement, which motivated me even more. My father had watched over me since I was still green, and trusting in my growth, he handed over the company to me. Determined to live up to his expectations, I psyched myself up for the challenge. One day I was headed to a meeting with a small construction company, Smith Construction, Inc., which was our longtime collaborating firm since my father's tenure. Our company delegates construction projects we receive from clients to firms like Smith Construction, Inc., which executes the building work. Once complete without issues, we pay the agreed-upon fee and deliver the buildings to our clients. While we work with several other contractors, Smith Construction Incorporated is a preferred partner due to their prompt and meticulous service. After a recent large project from a client, I contacted them a few days ago. We planned to negotiate and sign the contract if there were no issues. I arrived at Smith Construction, Inc., and was shown to the reception room. Arriving quite early, I headed to the restroom before meeting with the president. After checking my appearance in the mirror, I stepped into the hallway. Suddenly, a man burst from the side and bumped into me. I'm sorry. Are you all right?" As I apologized, the man clicked his tongue and glared at me. "Watch where you're going. Don't jump out in front of me like that, old man." Startled by his sudden outburst, I froze. Slowly recognizing his face, I realized he was David, the newly appointed second-generation president of Smith Construction, Inc., who had just taken over a few days ago after being the executive vice president. I had seen him once before, but had hardly spoken. This was practically our first meeting. Wondering what kind of person he was, I hadn't expected someone who would shout at strangers. I apologized again, and he stormed off down the hallway, seemingly headed for the meeting room. I followed at a distance. Then, bumping into another employee, he erupted again. "Watch where you're going, you bottom feeder. Everyone's bumping into me. I'm in a bad mood. Move aside when I'm walking." After venting, David briskly walked away. Feeling uncomfortable yet concerned for the berated employee, I followed from a distance. Entering the previously mentioned reception room, David was already seated with other staff members. Noticing me, he glared sharply again. "Huh? Isn't that the old man from earlier? This isn't a place for low-lives like you." David gestured dismissively with the back of his hand as if to shoo me away. I was dumbfounded, but since the employees around him only panicked and offered no help, I managed to regain my composure on my own and introduced myself. "Nice to meet you. I'm George Irving. I represent Irving Real Estate, your counterpart for today's deal. Thank you for your valuable time today." As I reached to hand out my business card, David rejected it. "What? You're an employee from the other party? I don't need your card. It's just a nuisance. Just hearing your name is enough. You surely know my name, right? Let's get the deal started." David, while leaning back, tapped his foot impatiently, signaling his irritation. He seemed to have mistaken me for just an employee, but it wasn't inconvenient for me, so I decided not to correct him and not worry about it. Reluctantly, I put the business card back and sat down at the prepared seat to start the deal. Just as I was about to begin discussing, it happened. "You're just a regular employee, right? Why would they send an old employee like you to have a discussion with me? You look unkempt and, frankly, not very sharp. Actually, you bumped into me without thinking earlier, right? Does your company even care about doing business?" Out of nowhere, David began to insult me personally. "I'm wondering what this guy is starting to belittle. Your business partner? That doesn't seem very professional." I responded calmly despite my irritation. "Yes, we have received a significant project this time, and I was hoping your company would take it on. Are you dissatisfied with me as your business partner?" While I dealt with this with a forced smile, the employees sitting next to David were sweating and seemed anxious. Though David had mistaken me for a regular employee, it was clear that the employees knew I was actually the president. However, it seems they are afraid of David, as they just sit silently without saying a word. Earlier, David was yelling at an employee in the hallway, so he must be taking out his frustrations on everyone around him regularly. Then he crossed his arms and smirked. "Of course, I'm dissatisfied that you're the counterpart. You clearly didn't go to college, right? It's written all over your face. High school grad, and at your age, still not holding a position higher than regular staff. It must be the case." David pointed at me gleefully, assuming he had guessed correctly when he guessed that I only have a high school diploma. I instinctively touched my face to check if high school graduate was written on it. He misunderstood my gesture and began to laugh loudly, thinking he had guessed everything correctly. While he was right about the high school part, he was completely wrong about the job position. I thought about correcting him, but hesitated to announce myself as the president outright and decided to ignore it. Then David started commenting on my company. "Your company might be well known locally, but nationally it's insignificant, right? It's like it wouldn't matter if it existed or not. In contrast, our Smith Construction Inc. is fairly well known even in the city. You should be grateful that such a company would take your contracts." He casually insulted my company, which made me clench my fist in anger, remaining silent. David didn't care and soon made an unreasonable demand. "If you're grateful, I'd like the payment for the next projects to be doubled. Hey, old man, go tell the president of your company my demands. If you want to become famous using our company, you'll have to listen to that much. If you refuse, then we won't accept any more work from you." I unintentionally glared at David. Why is this person so arrogant? Causing trouble with a partner company will be problematic for David's company as well. If the balance of power between us shifts, it will inevitably result in losses for both parties.
If he's just getting carried away because he was appointed as president, then how incompetent he must be.
While suppressing my anger, I replied to him, "Unfortunately, we cannot accommodate that request. We have been paying an appropriate amount until now. Furthermore, we are not contracting with your company to become famous. If you are not interested, we may seek cooperation from another enterprise." Suddenly, David's face turned red with anger. He stood up, grabbed a glass of ice water from his desk, and threw it over my head. The cold was so shocking that I flinched and my shoulders shrank. Even the employees sitting next to David were shocked and quickly grabbed towels to wipe my head and suit. The documents I had brought were splashed and completely soaked. David was still not satisfied and started yelling at me. "How dare you talk back to me like that? Do you want me to terminate the contract right now? Our company has jobs coming in from every direction, so losing one won't hurt us at all. You should understand that without thinking. Incompetence like you should cool off and come back when you're ready." He kept spewing insults nonstop, and finally, my patience ran out. "You just lost a $90 million deal." I muttered. The employees who were wiping the table, and my suit suddenly turned pale. Confused, David asked, "What?" I then clearly explained to him, "Because of your behavior and what you've set up to now, your company just lost a $90 million deal that was supposed to be finalized today." "What?" David looked stunned. In fact, the discussion I was supposed to have today was about a project far larger than anything we had contracted before. It involved the construction of a large-scale mixed-use commercial facility. A mixed-use commercial facility includes dining and entertainment venues, shopping centers, office buildings, and, depending on the size, residential buildings might also be built. This particular project was a special request from a local government entity, and in terms of scale, it was about the size of several large home facilities. Besides the mentioned facilities, the plan included educational institutions, elder care facilities, and even a large forest park. Due to the extraordinary scale, my father, who was then the president, and I reached out to various partnering companies, and we decided to co-construct with a contract value of $90 million per slot. We discussed with the partnering companies we approached and agreed that $90 million was a fitting reward for each. Everyone agreed immediately, so only one slot was left for other potential partners. I had initially thought of signing it to Smith Construction Incorporated, but unfortunately, with David acting like this, I doubted they could handle it perfectly. Feeling it would be a waste of money, I decided to act as if this negotiation never happened. A $90 million project? I was informed about that. David banged his fist on the table with a loud thump. Was informed? Of course not, because I hadn't spoken about it yet, David. When I tried to start the deal, you interrupted and started insulting me. Since then, you continuously insulted me and my company without tiring. How could we possibly discuss the deal under such circumstances? Unable to say anything, David just groaned in frustration, but he quickly started to argue back. "You're saying you canceled the $90 million deal? Don't make me laugh. A regular employee like you couldn't possibly have that authority. It's your company's president who decides to cancel deals. Threatening me won't change that." David stood proud, but the employees who had been silently observing finally spoke up. "David, this man is not a regular employee. He's the president. He's Mr. George Irving, the second-generation president of Irving Real Estate. Didn't you hear the explanation from your secretary this morning?" The employees hesitantly tried to explain. David looked puzzled for a moment, recalling the morning's events, and then suddenly showed a look of panic. Apparently, David was briefed about the business partner by his secretary this morning. He has only been president for a few days, so he doesn't know much about the other party. Moreover, he said it was too much trouble and left without listening properly or paying attention to the details. All I could do was shake my head. Even when I tried to hand you my business card, you dismissed it as bothersome. If you had just taken it properly, then this misunderstanding would have been resolved immediately. I slowly took out my business card case and thrust my business card at David. It clearly stated that I was the president of Irving Real Estate. Wait a minute. So you knew I was mistaken. Why didn't you correct me sooner? His face turning red with anger, David shouted, and the employees once again fell silent. Can't you see how your employees are acting around you? They are afraid of you. If someone gets yelled at every time they speak up, of course they'll stop wanting to talk. If you don't start handling things more calmly, soon you'll find yourself without anyone left around. As I spoke with a hint of preaching, David's anger only grew. I'm telling you, you realize it too. You're the person involved. So you should have introduced yourself, even if it meant interrupting me. Were you staying silent on purpose to embarrass me? He would have gotten angry just for interrupting him anyway. I sighed in exasperation. And just then, there was a knock on the door of the closed conference room. David answered grumpily, and into the room came a man in a wheelchair, pushed by his secretary. It was Kevin Smith, the president from Smith Construction, Inc. Sorry about that. Were you in the middle of a deal? I was supposed to arrive a bit earlier. David and I were both taken aback. Kevin, the president, what are you doing here today? Weren't you supposed to be in the hospital? Actually, I got permission to go out today after discussing it with my doctor. My doctor is quite stubborn, and it was hard to get permission. As the two of them talked casually, I stood there clueless about the whole situation. Kevin then explained the situation to me. Apparently, Kevin had been involved in a traffic accident a few weeks ago and had been receiving treatment in the hospital. The sudden incident caused chaos within the company. With no clear end to his treatment in sight and essential business unable to proceed in his absence, Kevin decided it was time to step down. The vice president was supposed to take over but refused, citing a lack of confidence. Desperate, the company turned to David, who had always boasted that he would become president someday. When the presidency was transferred, necessary explanations were supposedly given. But since Kevin needed to rest, he had arranged for his secretary and vice president to relay information. However, David had dismissed everything as troublesome at the company, which is why he was unaware of the details about the counterparties. And today, Kevin remembered that it was a scheduled deal with our company, which had been planned a month ago. It wasn't about the development of a mixed-use commercial facility. I was looking forward to it. So, how far has the discussion progressed? Kevin picked up the documents I had prepared, noticing they were wet. So David started looking outside, avoiding eye contact. These are wet. And looking closer, George, you're also wet. What happened? Asked Kevin. I glanced at David. He gestured frantically at me, signaling, don't talk. I ignored him and disclosed everything to Kevin. I explained how I had been verbally abused right from the start, how David had interrupted the deal to berate me, and how he had ultimately thrown ice water over my head. Kevin's calm demeanor suddenly turned furious. David, what is the meaning of this? Is what he's saying true? As David started to panic and make excuses. No way that's true. I'm the president. Why would the top of the company do something so terrible? It seems he's aware that what he did was wrong. If he knows it and still does it, that's really bad. While David frantically claimed his innocence, Kevin appeared thoughtful. This could lead to them thinking my statements were false. Just as I was about to plead further, the previously silent employee spoke up. Everything George is saying is true. We saw everything. The spilled water is proof. It's not just George. All of us employees have been subjected to unreasonable treatment by David. Incurred by my accusations, the employees started to expose the past wrongdoings of David. It seems that since his time as executive vice president, David had been terribly mistreating the staff, often lashing out irrationally. Mistakes were met with immediate shouting, and any rebuttal to unreasonable events was met with relentless criticism. At the worst times, he would reprimand those taking breaks, yelling, "If you have time to rest, you should be working." Once he became president, his outbursts of verbal abuse increased, causing the staff to become terribly frightened. All of these actions were carried out where neither Kevin nor the vice president could see, and he carefully adjusted his behavior to ensure his bad reputation didn't reach them. Some were even sworn to secrecy, which shocked me. Caught with no way out, David was trembling and pale. Kevin was still silently contemplating. I took this moment to express my feelings clearly to Kevin. I had no idea your company was involved in such issues. I'm glad to learn this before finalizing any contracts. Due to the trust issues it presents, I would like to void this deal. Furthermore, we will refrain from any future transactions with your company. Kevin looked up from his contemplation and deeply apologized to me. I apologize for the inconvenience caused by our David. In fact, I had heard rumors of his misconduct, but as they were few, I dismissed them as just rumors. It appeared that Kevin had been slightly aware of the rumors. However, there hadn't been any consultations, and the rumors varied widely and lacked certainty, so he didn't take any specific action. He never imagined that his decision would later cause trouble for several employees and business partners. Enraged by the situation, Kevin said he had recently been informed of David's behavior by the vice president and his secretary and was becoming increasingly concerned. I knew David had a tendency to get carried away, but this incident really brought out his worst side. I take this matter very seriously and will discuss with the board to decide on a proper punishment. As Kevin mentioned potential disciplinary action, David panicked and began making excuses. What kind of punishment are we talking about? You're not going to fire me, are you? I just moved into an expensive apartment. Everything will be ruined. Exasperated by his selfish remarks, Kevin exploded in anger. Don't joke around. Your actions have cost us a valued client. Don't think getting fired is the only consequence. Be prepared. Startled by the sudden outburst, David froze in fear. Perhaps now he could slightly understand how the employees felt under his verbal assaults. It seemed he was going to face proper disciplinary action, and it wasn't my place to comment further. I packed my belongings, said goodbye to Kevin and the staff, and quietly left the scene. Later, as promised, Kevin dismissed David from his position and then terminated his employment. After the contract with Irving Real Estate officially ended, the resulting damages were billed to David, burdening him with a substantial debt. Smith Construction Incorporated's performance significantly declined and briefly went into the red, but it seems to be holding on. The vice president was appointed as a third-generation president, and Kevin, after being discharged from the hospital, has been actively helping to restore the company's performance. As for David, he moved from his recently acquired luxury apartment to a rundown apartment and started taking multiple part-time jobs to pay off his debts. It appears he is constantly bullied by younger leaders at work, but unable to quit due to his debts. He keeps working, often on the verge of tears. While it feels somewhat pitiable, it's merely the return of his own misdeeds, which seems still mild in comparison. On my side, after severing ties with Smith Construction Incorporated, I approached another partner for the mixed-use commercial facility project. The deal was quickly agreed upon, and the contract was finalized. Construction is expected to start next year, and I am already looking forward to its completion. This ordeal has prompted me to review our partners and select only those truly reliable. Additionally, I've installed a suggestion box in the company, allowing employees to voice their complaints and requests directly to me, the president. Thanks to this, I can hear employee opinions firsthand, which helps in addressing issues more effectively. Ironically, this improvement might be credited to David. Moving forward, I am committed to ensuring Irving Real Estate continues to be widely loved by the community and our employees. Someday, I hope to grow the company further before my child takes over. Today, I psych myself up and energetically open the front door of my house.